I was scrolling through my terrible cable the other day because apparently I think I'm 50 years old, and I came across a movie I've seen many times, but for some reason it slipped my mind a bit. Ghostbusters the Second. Now, I don't think there's anybody alive who doesn't somewhat like the original Ghostbusters movie, and if there is, then they must really not enjoy fun things, and probably have no friends. However, it appears to be quite popular to take a hefty Slimer-sized shit all over Ghostbusters 2, and that's something I can't quite understand. The movie is far from what I'd call excellent, but I'd never consider it a flat-out bad movie. And let me preface the rest of this video now by saying, no, this is not one of those videos where I ironically say, oh, this thing is great, when in reality it very much sucks. I rewatched this movie several times, and in doing so I've concluded that Ghostbusters 2 is an actually pretty good comedy and sequel, and it receives far too much negative critique for a movie of its caliber. Allow me to justify why I believe this now.
Isn't that sweet?
Let's see what happens when we take away the puppy.
If there's anything Ghostbusters 2 retains from the original, it's the comedic style. A lot of the jokes can feel hit or miss, but they can hit, and they hit well.
It was in the Paramus Holiday Inn. I was having a drink at the bar, alone, and this alien approached me. I think he must have used some kind of a ray or a mind control device because he forced me to follow him to his room. And that's where he told me about the end of the world.
So your alien had a room at the Holiday Inn.
This ties in with another consistency from the original, that being the performances from our main quartet of actors. Bill Murray has his same dry, cynical sense of humor. Dan Aykroyd feels like a mentally unhinged genius let loose on a film set. Harold Ramis's deadpan demeanor makes the moments when he does crack a joke all the more funny. And Ernie Hudson is just having a great time all the way through this. It makes sense that the film would feel like a natural extension of the first. The director Ivan Reitman returned to work on it, Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd handled the writing. They definitely played it safe when producing the sequel by trying as much as they could to avoid straying from what made the first movie so successful. Although, according to critics, this effort may have seriously backfired. One of the biggest complaints I see tossed around about the film is that it follows the exact same plot formula as the first Ghostbusters to an almost perfect degree. Now, as much as I want to defend this movie, I really can't deny this observation. The Ghostbusters start off down on their luck, they catch a break with their first big job, they do a montage of various ghost hunting shenanigans, they find out there's some super ghost causing trouble in New York City, they get into a big argument with the mayor and then some other asshole bully character, and then some scary lights appear in the sky, so the mayor says, "Get me the Ghostbusters." And then the Ghostbusters defeat the super ghost and Bill Murray banks Sigourney Weaver. That's the general plot structure of both Ghostbusters films. Now, even though the sequence of major events in the movies are very similar, this should not undermine the many varying situations and concepts that the sequel brings to the table. For example, now there's a baby.
I understand.
Everybody loves babies. They're cute.
You're short, your belly button sticks out too far, and you're a terrible burden on your poor mother.
I mean, at least for the movie, the baby is actually important to the story and not just thrown in to serve as some kind of cute mascot character. We already have one of those. Another big complaint I personally want to address is this bit of confusion expressed by audiences in regards to why exactly the Ghostbusters start off in the sequel pretty much hated by most of the city and out of business considering they literally saved the world several years before.
You know, my dad says you guys are full of crap.
Jason,
Well, some people
hush.
have trouble believing in the paranormal.
No, he just says you guys are full of crap and that's why you went out of business.
Well, there's about two logical explanations for this question that I came up with. First off, the Ghostbusters busted all the ghosts 5 years ago, so now there's no more ghosts to be busted. They all have to take up different jobs pertaining to their original occupations involving psychology and occult research. It isn't until the pink jizz beneath the city starts to become reactive that spooky happenings start popping up and they decide to reopen the ghostbusting business. Just like true entrepreneurs, they make a killing on the market while the killing's good. The other explanation to the question of why they're down on their luck is something stated within the sequel itself. The Ghostbusters may have saved the day by killing an immortal trans woman, but in doing so, they kind of destroyed a lot of shit and caused the city to pay millions in marshmallow removal. It's sort of understandable that they'd be kind of unable to continue operating the business with that many damages on their hands. But anyways, that's just my quick take on why the sequel starts with the Ghostbusters out of business. In Ghostbusters 2, there's two main paranormal forces that trigger the main conflict. There's the painting of Vigo the Carpathian, who I must admit is not at all as threatening as Gozer was. And there's also the river of pink jizz flowing underground. I really like the concept of the pink jizz. It's not a ghost that directly attacks the people of New York, but it's a physical substance activated by the sheer number of assholes living in New York. Its abilities are determined by human emotions like anger and joy. And although for most of the movie its activity is malicious due to the negative energy emanating from the city, at the end of the movie it becomes the Ghostbusters' greatest tool for saving the day when they learn to fuel it with positive energy.
Oh, it dances too.
There's also the whole added social commentary about how New York as well as metropolitan areas in general have mostly become overcrowded masses of dickheads who hate each other, although that message is kind of on the nose in the movie.
You know, I just can't believe things have gotten so bad in the city that there's no way back. I mean, sure, it's dirty, it's crowded, it's polluted, it's noisy, and there's people all around who just as soon step on your face as look at you. But come on! There's gotta be a few spots of sweet humanity left in this burned-out burg.
One of my favorite segments in the movie is the courtroom scene where the Ghostbusters make their triumphant return into the public eye. This might just be me, but I always thought the Ghostbusters looked much cooler in suits when catching ghosts than their usual outfits. I know it isn't as iconic, but this is a design trend I would have enjoyed catching on. We also get to see a lot of antics from Rick Moranis as Louis Tully.
I was stuck in an elevator for 2 hours and I had to make the whole time. But I don't blame them, because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
I'm actually glad that the movie gave a bit more screen time and development for Louis. In the first movie, he was just an awkward loser who unfortunately got possessed by a demon. But in Ghostbusters 2, he's still an awkward loser, but throughout the film he becomes more confident, and he even scores with redheaded Annie Potts. Rick Moranis really goes all out with this character, and his enthusiasm for being a colossal dork makes for some great scenes.
Happy New Year! Stay fit, keep sharp, make good decisions.
The film also makes some artistic choices that I really enjoy. The set design and locations in the Ghostbusters films have always been visually fantastic. The candle-filled chamber where the final battle takes place, the creepy underground railroad, the laboratories, Bill Murray's nasty apartment that reflects how much of a mess his life without Dana is. There's a lot of importance to details and layout of sets that the movie definitely understands. The music is delightful as always, not just including the main Ghostbusters theme itself. The 80s inspired soundtrack is a staple of these movies, and I can't imagine watching them without it. There's a few dated moments, like when Peter and Dana are in the same room and the 80s piano starts playing.
The noise I make comes from these instruments. For example, this synth gives me this great sound we heard in our opening piece.
Fuck this!
Some viewers might feel that the resolution of the film is kind of hokey, even for a movie directed by the same guy who made Kindergarten Cop. Yeah, I'm aware that the people of New York singing in unison to weaken the villain's evil powers is cheesy as all get out, but damn it, sometimes I like some of that cheese. The good old 1980s cheese that we'll probably never be able to replicate or indulge in again thanks to how bitter audiences have become. This brings me to another climactic part of the movie, that being the penultimate segment where the Ghostbusters rally together the entire city by playing the song Higher and Higher from atop a mobile Statue of Liberty. I must confess, this scene is probably my favorite scene out of both the Ghostbusters films. It's just so hard not to feel good when watching it. This image of millions of people banding together in spirit through the power of music and pride in their home to overcome the evil of a 16th century warlock who controls pink jizz is just so beautifully touching. It's something the first movie got close to, but didn't quite perfect as much as the sequel's finale did.
Who's lifting me higher? Come on, you sing!
A finale with this much of a satisfying, feel-good energy to it was something that would be extremely difficult to beat. And so, they never bothered trying. Ghostbusters is one of very few series that blossomed in the 80s that never went out for at least a third film to make up a trilogy. Now, despite how seemingly disappointed many fans were with the second movie, many of these same fans clamored for decades demanding a third Ghostbusters. Rumors of a third film were teased for years, and these unfounded teases were enough to keep the fans hyped for a long time. That is until Harold Ramis died, which simultaneously made any hope for a true sequel die with him. I always personally felt that 2 films was perfectly acceptable. I mean, I still like the sequel a lot, but the dip in quality from the original is definitely noticeable, so who knows how the third film would have gone. However, one opinion I feel is complete bullshit is this idea that the lackluster delivery and reception of Ghostbusters 2 stalled the franchise and spoiled the hype for anything else from the series. I guess they just forgot about the successful cartoon that was still in syndication, along with the ball-bustingly huge amounts of merchandise that spawned from both the movies and the cartoon. In 2009, Ghostbusters the video game was released to acclaim from fans of the franchise, primarily due to the voice acting contributions from all the original Ghostbusters. Due to the game's story borrowing pieces from unfinished scripts with another movie in mind, many people, including Dan Aykroyd himself, consider it the unofficial third Ghostbusters movie. So with this in mind, I think the claim that Ghostbusters 2 put the series to sleep is a lofty exaggeration. If anything, the series chose to become inactive on its own terms. Maybe the talented people responsible for creating the franchise made the choice not to drive it into the ground and milk it to the point where nobody would ever want to see the Ghostbusters ever again. Artistic integrity is still a thing. I will say now that the only thing in Ghostbusters 2 that I truly don't like is this dumb Eraserhead-looking asshole. This movie would receive contemporary praise from millions if they George Lucas this douche out of the movie in its next release.
I love you.
Yes?
Yeah.
Well, I love you too.
Okay, I kind of like him too. Having a sequel live up to the achievements of its predecessor is a difficult thing. Not impossible, but difficult. It's the reason why many creators of popular films never bother attempting to dish out a sequel. They'd rather try making something new that hopefully does just as well as their past works. Ghostbusters 2 may not have made an impact anywhere near as strong as the original, but it most certainly put in an effort to. Plenty of unwarranted sequels flop hard on their face and just suck ass both when they're released as well as in retrospect. Usually because they're nothing but a cash grab attempting to profit off the hard work put into the successful first movie. If you strike gold once, why bother digging some more? Today, Ghostbusters 2 exists as a natural extension of a series that entertained millions of people across multiple generations, and I believe it now sits comfortably as an equally enjoyable follow-up and an appropriate cap on a great film franchise. A franchise that existed and passed on during the era when it was at its peak. There was never any attempt to sully its memory or defile its legacy. Something so awful would never happen. Never. Just unthinkable.